Hello, this is Julius from Basic Financials. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a talk about business asset rollover relief, or BARR. This is something that's been around for a while. When you look at all the literature, which I suggest that you do if it applies to you, HMRC's website is probably the best one to get all the detail, but this is an overview of what's going on. But when you look at their website, most of it looks like it relates just to individuals selling assets and buying new ones, but it actually applies to companies as well. So companies can do, when I talk about anything here, it applies equally to companies' assets, selling and buying, as well as individuals. And it's also possible for individuals to sell assets and buy new ones and use them in their own companies as well, and keeping them in their private names so bear that in mind when you look at HMRC's website. It doesn't particularly talk about companies, but it does apply to them. Now, what it is if say you've got a business and you're using an asset in your business. Now, what I don't really mean plant and machinery. What I mean is like a capital asset, like maybe it's a shop. Maybe you run a shop, and you own the freehold of the shop. So let's say you come to sell that shop, but you don't want to just retire. You actually want to carry on in business. It's just you've got a bigger shop you want to buy, or maybe you're downsizing, but maybe you just want to change the shop altogether for some reason. What you'll end up having to pay normally, when you sell that shop, you're likely to have to end up paying something called capital gains tax. Let's say you bought the shop 10 years ago for £100,000. This includes something called goodwill, but don't worry too much about that at the moment. It's the principles that I want to talk about. Let's say you bought it 10 years ago for £100,000, and you've run the shop for those good 10 years, done well, and it's now worth £250,000, and you sell it to somebody. You're making a gain of £150,000 there, on which you'd have to pay tax. Now, the rates of tax vary, so I'm not particularly going to go into what the tax rate could be just at this minute, but it's a bit harsh if you're going to have to pay tax on money you might not have because you want to reinvest that money into a bigger shop, say. So the business asset roller relief allows you to defer the capital gain you've made into the new asset. So let's say that example I've just given you, you've just sold your shop for £250,000 and you've made a gain of £150,000, and you buy a new shop and it costs you £250,000, this new shop, so you're reinvesting the whole proceeds into this new shop. What you can do is roll over that gain of £150,000 into the new shop. So if you come to sell that shop later on, another 10 years time, rather than having your starting cost as £250,000 for working out your gain, you actually only start off with the original cost of £100,000 because you've rolled over the £150,000 gain. So if you then decide to stop and you don't reinvest, then that gain would be crystallised and you'd have to pay tax on that gain at whatever the rates are then. Now, it could be that you might want to reinvest in another shop, and you can carry on doing that. So you can reinvest your gain into another shop, or even the new gain you could reinvest. Well, that's what it is, really, isn't it? So let's say you sold it for £500,000 in another 10 years' time. That would give you a gain of £400,000 overall, taking into account the rollover gain. If you bought another property for £500,000, you'd be able to roll over all of the gain. Now, you might notice I've been sort of doing the example so that you're reinvesting all of the proceeds. Now, it might be that you don't want to reinvest all of them. If you don't, then part of the gain will become taxable. So in that example where we said that you bought another property for £500,000, If actually you only bought it for 400,000, so you didn't reinvest £100,000, then £100,000 of the gain would become taxable at that time, and the rest of it would be rolled over. So you'd have £300,000 rolled over into the new asset. Yeah, so that's a bit of an example. Now, what else do we need? Oh, the other possibility is that you've got an asset. This applies quite often with, say, with farmers. You might have been farming land in your business, and then you find that you can sell it for development, which is quite common, and quite large sums of money as well. If you have got another farm you want to buy, or other business assets you want to buy with those proceeds, then you could potentially roll over the gain. Now there are often you'll end up with land that's just sitting there doing nothing for quite a long time. In which case, if that asset isn't being used in your business, then it's not a business asset when you come to sell. This is very, very critical. So if you've owned that asset for 10 years, but you've only actually been using it in your business for 5 of those 10, then you would only be able to roll over half of the gain on the sale. So for that reason, it's quite good tax planning to try and keep that asset being used in your business. So for example, if it's land that's waiting for development, or you're waiting for the opportunity to develop it, or get someone else to buy it to develop it, then you might want to graze it. For example, you might have someone else having their horses on it, or sheep. But you can't just rent it out. You need to show that you're actually managing that asset. So you maybe growing the crop for the feed and fertilising it yourself, and not just letting someone else do it, or you've actually got to be farming it yourself. And that applies equally to assets that you're buying. You've got to be using them in your business. I think I'm probably going to leave it at that. The tax roll, no, I'm not. There's something else I want to say. It's not always advisable to do it. If, for example, you're selling an asset that you would qualify for business asset disposal relief, what used to be called entrepreneurs relief, which is now business asset disposal relief. So at the moment, the rates are 10% if you sell and you qualify for that. You might not want to reinvest if there's potential for, when you reinvest, that the new asset you buy, maybe at some point you're not going to be farming it. You might decide to rent out, or using it in your business. You might decide to rent out, or get someone else to do it. Then you might want to just suffer the tax at 10% rather than wait until your gain is much higher later on and pay at a higher rate. So that's something worth thinking about. Now, I'm talking to you on the 28th of February 2021, and there's about to be a budget on the 3rd of March 21, and the government are looking at raising some money. It's possible that some of these capital gains tax reliefs might change, in which case check out the budget. Make sure that what I'm saying now hasn't all changed. I rather suspect it won't on Wednesday, on the 3rd of March, but they may well announce that it's going to at some point in the future, maybe in the autumn, for example. But yeah, if you're looking at this video, just have a quick check and make sure nothing changed in the budget. I think I'm going to leave it at that. And if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the box below as usual. And like and subscribe, please, if you can. And I'll see you again for another video soon. Thanks for listening.